which allows the government to require businesses to hand over records of any, quote, any tangible things.
Section 215 says the government can ask for any tangible things, so long as it's for an investigation to protect against international terrorism, which is basically a blank cheque. Section 215 is overseen by a secret intelligence court known as the FISA Court, and they've interpreted it to mean the government could basically collect and store phone records for every American, the vast majority of whom, of course, have no connection to terrorism. Now, the Patriot Act was written just after 9/11, and for years it was extended and reauthorised with barely a passing thought. That was before the public was made aware of what the government's capabilities actually were.
Edward Snowden has just taken responsibility for one of the biggest government leaks in U.S. history.
We learned that the government has the capacity to track virtually every American phone call and to scoop up impossibly vast quantities of data across the internet.
Revelations that the NSA eavesdropped on world leaders.
And look, you can think that Snowden did the wrong thing or did it in the wrong way, but the fact is, we have this information now, and we no longer get the luxury of pleading ignorance. But here's the thing. It's now 2 years later, and it seems like we've kind of forgotten to have a debate over the content of what Snowden leaked. A recent Pew report found that nearly half of Americans say they're not very concerned or not at all concerned about government surveillance, which is fine if that's an informed opinion. But I'm not sure that it is. The NSA will argue that just because they can do something doesn't mean they do it, and that there are restrictions on their operations, such as the FISA Court, which must approve requests for foreign surveillance. But in 34 years, that court has approved over 35,000 applications and only rejected 12. So maybe it is time for us to talk about where the limits should be, because there is widespread agreement it needs to be reformed.
Congress never did intend to allow bulk collections when it passed Section 215, and no fair reading of the text would allow for this program.
Even the NSA has said that the number of terror plots in the US that the Section 215 telephone records programs has disrupted is 1. And the public debate so far has been absolutely pathetic.
Why did you do this?
The NSA has the greatest surveillance capabilities that we've ever seen in history. Now, what they will argue is that they don't use this for nefarious purposes against American citizens. In some ways, that's true. But the real problem is that they're using these capabilities to make us vulnerable to them, and then saying, while I have a gun pointed at your head, I'm not going to pull the trigger. Trust me.
So what's the NSA you want look like? Because you applied for a job at the NSA, right. So you clearly see an inherent value in that shadowy organization.
I worked with mass surveillance systems against Chinese hackers. I saw that, these things do have some purpose.
And you want your spies to be good at spying, to be fair.
Right. What you don't want is
There's no doubt it is a critical conversation, but is it a conversation that we have the capacity to have? Because everything you did only matters if we have this conversation properly.
If I had knowledge that the U.S. government had a picture of my dick, I would be very pissed off.
They are still collecting everybody's information, including your dick pic.
So let's go through each NSA program and explain to me its capabilities in regards to that photograph of my penis. So, 702 surveillance, can they see my dick?
Yes.
Executive Order 12333, dick or no dick?
Yes. PRISM is how they pull your junk out of Google with Google's involvement.
Upstream.
Upstream is how they snatch your junk as it transits the internet.
Okay, Mystic.
If you're describing your junk on the phone, yes.
But, Edward, if the American people understood this, they would be absolutely horrified.
I guess I never thought about putting it in the context of your junk.
Would a good takeaway from this be, until such time as we've sorted all of this out, don't take pictures of your dick?
You shouldn't change your behavior because a government agency somewhere is doing the wrong thing. If we sacrifice our values because we're afraid, we don't care about those values very much.
If you publish documents that the government does not want the people to see, you're the equivalent of a terrorist. You're Al-Qaeda or Taliban, and you should be hunted down like that. This is the America that they want. If Sarah Palin was president, she's talking about equating journalists to Al-Qaeda and hunting them down? This is crazy, man.
Exclusive interview with Julian Assange. He's standing by from his safe room at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. First,
he has long been a prickly thorn in the side of the U.S. government. But who is Julian Assange? Hacker, activist, a journalist, or fugitive criminal?
We've exposed the world's secrets.
He is the mastermind behind WikiLeaks, which has published the secrets of nations and is now at the heart of a global debate over the public's right to know.
The WikiLeaks organization published hundreds more internal government documents.
Assange has embarrassed the powerful and revealed top secret information about U.S. and other government activities.
A bunch of bodies laying there.
But at what cost?
It puts people's lives in danger, threatens our national security.
Now the man who has been on a crusade to expose what he believes is wrongdoing faces accusations of his own.
You have no right to arrest Julian Assange!
For more than a year, he's been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he sought refuge to avoid possible criminal charges. And today, WikiLeaks and Assange are standing shoulder to shoulder with perhaps the most damaging leaker of them all, Edward Snowden, the fugitive former government contractor who went public with top secret information about some of the crown jewels of the intelligence community.
Some U.S. officials say, make no mistake, these leaks have serious consequences, that the terrorists are changing the way they communicate because of these disclosures. George?
Okay, Pierre.
But not a single U.S. government official, no one from the Pentagon, no one from any government says that any of our revelations in the past 6 years has caused anyone to come to physical harm. This is a matter for states at a very, very serious level to understand and sort out and behave responsibly.
Quote, I think WikiLeaks, their focus isn't necessarily the Constitution of the United States. That's a concern for me.
He is a hero. He has told the people of the world and the United States that there is mass, unlawful interception of their communications.
And instead of focusing on Snowden and shooting the messenger, we should really focus on the crimes of the NSA, because whatever laws Snowden may or may not have broken, they are infinitesimally small compared to the two major surveillance laws and the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution that NSA has violated.
We have secret interpretations of the law. What does the law mean if there's secret interpretations in secret courts, which is communicating with the press, is committing espionage? What has happened here is a mass revelation of illegal transnational spying by the National Security Agency, the collection of the communications records of every single person in the United States.
Try and portray him as a three-dimensional human being, not vilify him or glorify him.
It is going to smother the truthful version of events at a time when the truth is most in demand.
We are eroding civil liberties at a rate that's a little alarming, really alarming, in fact. And yet at the same time, we need to save people's lives. I mean, it's very difficult to be completely clear-cut. I think it needs debate.
And debate is precisely what he believes the Fifth Estate will provoke.
It's a serious matter. It's a threat to U.S. democracy and to democracy more broadly in the West, to have a surveillance apparatus on every single person that would have been the dream of East Germany. What type of place is Western democracy going to be? Is it going to be a place with a collapsing rule of law, with mass surveillance of entire populations, all the practical elements of a totalitarian regime? The West is becoming a place where the best and the brightest who keep the government, hold the government to account, are ending up in asylum or in exile in other countries. We've seen that before with dictatorships in Latin America, with the Soviet Union, and its time has stopped.
There is a war against people of conscience within the United States government who dare to speak out without permission, who dare to uncover extrajudicial killings, extra-legal activities by the government, unconstitutional activities that are done in our names and with U.S. taxpayer dollars. The Obama administration, which is headed by a constitutional lawyer by training, has indicted more people under the Espionage Act than all of his predecessors combined.
Newly disclosed leaks from Edward Snowden have identified 5 innocent Americans who were spied on by the NSA.
Still, the government spies on political activists, civil rights activists, and leaders.
We have proof. People did try to start a debate using all sorts of methods, including former National Security Agency whistleblowers, and its only primary source documents in volume that are probably capable of starting a debate about a complex issue like mass surveillance. And what Edward Snowden revealed was documentary evidence, and it was that primary source evidence that has led to this debate. As Daniel Ellsberg, the famous Pentagon Papers whistleblower, has said, it is not possible for a national security whistleblower now in the United States to have a fair trial. The US government has a precedent of applying state secret privilege to prevent the defense from using material that is classified in their favor. Collateral Murder, a documentary that we produced based on the tape from an Apache helicopter mowing down 12 to 18 people in Baghdad, including 2 Reuters journalists, and very clearly engaged in a murder. And the murder was an unarmed man, wounded, crawling in the gutter, and Good Samaritans came to rescue him. And all of them were killed, and 2 children came away with serious injuries. With not just other media organisations, but a number of statistical organisations to work out what the kill count was for Iraq, combining with other figures, and we ended up with more than 100,000 civilian casualties. In fact, 15,000 new, completely undocumented civilian kills, and documenting US involvement and approval of Iraqi torture.
The charge, Julian Assange, that you endangered lives when you release the unredacted documents that you do?
Completely false. They found that 0 people had been physically harmed by our publication. There's all sorts of things that can't be done anymore because of mass surveillance. And okay, we're able to do it because we're specialists, but only because we're specialists.
So how do people protect themselves?
Well, you can't become a specialist unless you want to do that full time and spend years and years doing it. That is the reality that we're in right now. Various groups in the United States made threats towards my family, including one threat publicly calling for the killing of some of my children in order to get at me.
I want people to see the truth.
Claire. Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards.
He leaked documents during the war, and they were enormously helpful for people on the outside to understand what the government was thinking about on the inside.
If you don't have truth, then we have to ask ourselves, why do we risk anything, and what are we fighting for to begin with?
The Army reports listed some 60,000 civilians dead.
He's a man who's done things that the mainstream media should have done a long time ago.
He ignited this chain of social action.
We saw very clearly the discrepancies between what we were being told and what was actually happening.
He's a whistleblower, and the whole concept of whistleblower laws and whistleblower protections are you cannot get into trouble for reporting about illegal or improper activity.
The attempt is to shut down any free flow of information.
They want to.
It's important that we do have those people who stand up and expose what's really going on.
They take enormous risks on our behalf.
And we need more like him.
And now that I know it, I cannot unknow it.
God knows what happens now.
Hopefully, worldwide discussion,
debates, and reforms.
I want people to see the truth.
The truth.
The truth. Because without information, you cannot make informed decisions as a public.